Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. This is our first event as PAG co-chairs, and we're very happy to have you at this networking event. We've got some super exciting presentations lined up for you. So as Scarlett said, I'm Sam Dinney. I use they, she pronouns, and I'm speaking to you also from the Nipmuc Nation ancestral homelands in Western Massachusetts. I'm co-chair of LGBTQ museum staff and students alongside Allie. And just a bit of information about who we are before we get started. So I believe we're NEMA's newest PAG. We were formed about 5 months ago. The PAG offers queer folks involved in the museum field a safe space to network, share resources and experiences, navigate the challenges of being queer in the workspace, whether out or closeted, and seek support. We also welcome allies committed to queer inclusion. Our PAG grew out of a Facebook group that Allie and I sort of accidentally created in November of 2020. We now have over 300 members from across the country and around the world. It is a closed Facebook group right now just to maintain the safety and security of all our members. I'll drop the link for that group in the chat if anyone is interested in joining. And now I will hand it over to Allie to give an introduction to the event today.
Hey there, folks. Thanks for all being here. With Pride Month just a couple of weeks away, National Pride Month is in June. This is a great time to celebrate the fantastic works that museums are doing for LGBTQ representation and inclusion for both their staff, audience, and the artists, performers, or histories that they represent. We have 5 fabulous presenters today who will all be doing sort of rapid fire presentations, about 5 to 10 minutes. We'll be saving all of the questions and discussion for the end, as we know that we could have a really rich discussion for every single one of these presentations. So feel free to drop your questions in the chat, and our fabulous moderator, Tobin, will save all of those for the end. Because there is so much great prideful LGBTQ inclusion stories to celebrate, we will actually be doing another one of these on June 2nd with another 4 museums speaking about their work. So if you had fun today, or if you're talking about how awesome it was to one of your friends or colleagues and they want to join in, make sure that you subscribe for the June 2nd event as well. Sam has some exciting news to share for all, let's see, 28 people on this call.
So before we hear from our first speaker, I have the pleasure to announce our raffle winner. So Elizabeth Nevins graciously gifted us a copy of Queering the Museum, the December issue of the Journal of Museum Education. We'd like to give a shout out first to the Museum Education Roundtable, and I will drop their website and social media in the chat box. So we entered the name of all registrants in a random name picker, and the winner is Anastasia Maurer. So if you are currently on this call, I will connect with you in the chat box.
Woohoo! Congratulations, Anastasia, and thank you again to Museum Education Roundtable. All right, to kick it off this afternoon on this at least sunny in Massachusetts day is Ken Turino, who's the Manager of Community Partnerships and Resources at Historic New England. Welcome, Ken.
Hey, thank you. And thank you all for coming. I see we have people from all over, so that's great. Just give me a second to start this. And I'm going to dive right in. I was really pleased to be asked by the NEMA PAG, and great for you for organizing and doing this. Really, really appreciate it. And we'll look forward to other programs and events, including the one in June. So this is our pre-Pride event. But as we all know, we don't celebrate Pride just in any one month. So yes, what I'm going to do today in a presentation, I've got lots of slides, but I'm going to go very quickly, is tell you a little bit about the organization I work with. But I really want to talk about, I took a different take on this and talk about partnering, which has really helped us get our queer stories out to the general public. And many of you, I hope, are familiar with Historic New England, largest regional heritage organization in America. 38 historic house museums, plus we have archives, which are great use for people doing queer research, and our collections. So Historic New England is fortunate to have 4 properties, yes, 4, that look at or talk about queer history. And I'm just going to go through those really quickly and invite you. They will be open this summer. That's good news, things opening up. The Sarah Orne Jewett House, and we'll come back and see these. The Codman Estate in Lincoln, Massachusetts, Beauport in Gloucester, Massachusetts. And this is breaking news, folks. We have a new museum that's opening up next month. It's going to be open and limited 1 day a week, partially COVID, partially because of staff resources COVID, up in Dresden, Maine. And this house also has a queer story, I'm happy to say. In 1965, this house was saved from neglect by the designer and preservationist Bill Waters and his partner, Cy Pinkham. The interpretation of this site is going to be, I hope, grow over the years. So it's a work in progress. And that's true of lots of our stories at our historic sites. And I'll give you an indication. But we're not talking just about queer history at our historic sites. We're trying to incorporate all kinds of stories at our historic site. So through our exhibitions, I'm trying to get to work on this one on Jewelry of Life and Love. We're making sure to include queer stories in them. So here you can see the rings that were commitment rings before marriage was legal in Massachusetts, to include those stories in our exhibitions. This is another one. Again, it's not just queer stories, but we're trying to incorporate more inclusive stories. I mean, let's face it, for many years, Historic New England was known as a mainly white kind of Yankee organization. Well, we're not anymore. We're changing, and you have to change. So this is from that same head to toe exhibition. And I love these boots, which came in our collection, and they came from a queer man who used to use them to go out dancing in the disco era in P-Town, but fabulous shoes there. But I really want to talk about one of the ways that we've really been able to grow these stories and tell these stories is through a partnership. And we have people here from outside of New England. I urge you to go to their website for the History Project. And you can see that they focus on documenting and preserving the history of New England's LGBT communities and sharing that history. They are a nationally award-winning organization. They have done publications, they do exhibitions, wonderful programs, and you're going to learn about some of those as I go on. So I'm very pleased, proud to say that Beauport in Gloucester, Massachusetts was probably, and I've been doing this research for many, many years, the first to openly identify the owner as a gay man. And that was over a decade ago. You see the gentleman, Henry David Sleeper, an interior designer on the bottom. And this just gives you a little taste for each room that you see. 27 rooms you see on a tour as a different theme. But what's helped us get this word out is through the partnering with the History Project. And here we started over a decade ago working with them to do specialty programs and tours. And that included tours of the building, but also of the neighborhood, which was really kind of a queer enclave, really closed private community in this very exclusive part of Gloucester on the water. And again, just showing you some scenes, we felt that having some kind of reception and all for people to chat and all is very important. We continue that over a decade later with lectures and other programs. We generally do something for Pride. Our tour has expanded. Henry David Sleeper's papers were destroyed, not unusual, but through the dedicated efforts of staff and researchers, we keep finding out more stories and uncovering them and including those in the interpretation. So we've annually done these Pride tours, not again just for Pride, but throughout the season that it's open. And this is from pre-COVID. the last Pride event that we're able to do with the celebration and reception and just a time to kick back and enjoy being on the water. But we don't partner with just any one organization. My point is that partnering gets a long way and can be mutually beneficial. This is a program that we did in June, but with North Shore Pride, again, to reach out to other organizations. Codman Estate and Lincoln was the home of the Codman family. But we focus on these Pride events with Ogden Codman, one of the descendants who lived in the house for a while and helped to redesign some of it. And we've been doing programs, again, lectures on Codman's queerness for a while. And that's an area we hope to grow on. Now, we don't just do those historic sites I've mentioned, but we also do these walking tours in Boston. Again, these were led by the History Project. They have the expertise that we can build on. And why Beacon Hill? We have our site there, Otis House, but the Charles Street Meeting House, if any of you know Charles Street in Boston, know that iconic building. Well, we own an easement on that, Historic New England. We preserve that property, even though it has a private owner. And that was the first site of the gay community news. So there's connections there that we try to make. And we've done many walking tours, and we hope post-COVID to be able to do more. We also hope in the future to be doing more in the Sarah Orne Jewett's house, which is really focused in on the interpretation of Sarah Orne Jewett and her partner, Annie Fields. But I'm going to end just this in terms of partnering, hot off the press. The partnership just got cemented today. And I have asked someone to put in the chat, and I hope that happens, or I'll do it, the link. We're partnering with Massachusetts Historical Society and with the History Project on this program in print, Boston's LGBT publications during the gay liberation movement. Again, we have a connection with the gay community news, Historic New England. I urge you to sign up for this program, either at the Massachusetts Historical Society's website or through Historic New England. So thanks to Gavin and his team, Mass Historical, for shepherding this. So with that, I am going to stop sharing and turn this over to, I think it's, I'm not sure actually who's coming next. I can't remember. So I think it's Brittany. Brittany, you're up. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Ken. That was fantastic. So next up, as Ken said, that we have Brittany Nazario, Visitor Experience Manager at the Cummer Museum of Art and Gardens. And she is also a co-moderator of our Facebook group. So we're super excited to have her here. And I will turn it over to Brittany.
Thanks, Sam. Like Sam said, I am from Jacksonville, Florida, so thank you all for having me crash your group today. So I am the Visitor Experience Manager at my museum, the Cummer Museum of Art and Gardens. But like many of you, I hold a lot of hats, so I also do social media and volunteers and a number of things. So today I'm going to share about a little bit about our exhibition that we have going on right now. What you should see on your screen, it's Zanelli Maholi, Yama Gonyama, Hail the Dark Lioness. And this exhibition we had in April and it leaves in June. And we are so excited because this is the first exhibition, not only of a solo exhibition for a Black artist, but also a solo exhibition for a photographer and someone who identifies as non-binary, like Zanelli Maholi does. And so this is huge, not only for our museum, but also for Florida. So I am down in the Bible Belt. We're in the South. Y'all will hear me say y'all throughout this presentation. So we're really excited about it. And we did a number of things to prepare, but also to get our visitors excited about it too. But before we held the exhibition, one of the things our staff was talking about internally was content warnings. And so if you follow me on Twitter or if you are in that Facebook group, you probably saw me reach out to people saying, what are your thoughts on content warnings? And can I get some guidance on this? And we had so many really great responses from other museums. And what we landed on was that content warnings are usually relegated to Black and queer bodies. And we don't have content warnings for other works in our museum, and so we weren't going to put it specifically on this exhibition. So we decided not to do that. We also decided not to have any age restrictions on it. Somebody brought up maybe only people 16 and older or mature audiences could view this exhibition. And it was a hard-fought battle, but we made it through, and we don't have any content warnings on the exhibition. So this is what we have instead, which is an amazing quote by Macaulay, which says, "It's what comes from within that is beautiful," which is so exciting, and it really speaks volumes to what our visitors have taken away from this exhibition. This is just a clip from social media from someone who was very excited about the exhibition, and we have had nothing but positive responses from our community and from museums worldwide. These are more pictures of people in the exhibition. And so, and also another new thing that happened with this exhibition is my team, the visitor experience team, is the team that's on the floor. So they welcome you at the front desk, they welcome you at our education desk, but we haven't been in galleries. So usually we have a security team in galleries, and we're working on transitioning into having my team, the visitor experience team, in galleries. And so instead of going museum-wide in all of our galleries, we specifically stuck to this exhibition. And so our visitor experience team has been in this exhibition, able to talk to people about the works, and really just engage in the excitement that everyone is having from seeing this exhibition. And to prepare our visitor experience team, not only did we have these curatorial-led trainings, we also had a training specifically on gender, pronouns, and inclusive language. And it wasn't just for the visitor experience team. We actually did this for the museum staff as a whole. It was about 2 hours, and it went through really incredible things that bettered the museum for our community, not only for the exhibition, but in general. And so this is a quote from one of our visitors. They came into the exhibition and they said, "I can tell this is really deep and I don't understand any of it and I need help." And our visitor experience person was in the gallery and able to explain what pronouns are, why Macaulay uses they, them, and explain the work better. And he left saying, you know, "I'm so glad you were here. I was right. I needed you to help me." And that just drives home the point of everything that we were trying to do for the exhibition. So it makes me really excited. And then once people leave through the exhibition, they leave through this doorway, which leads into another gallery, but it's also our pop-up shop area and interactive space. And once you get in there, you'll see a bunch of things you can purchase from our pop-up shop. But I'm so excited because this time I got to curate these 45 books that go in the pop-up shop, and they're all centered around Blackness and queerness. So you'll see everything from children's books like Queer There and Everywhere, and then Beyond the Gender Binary, all the way up to Black Features, which I'm sure most of you have seen from Kimberly Drew and Jenna Wortham. So that was really exciting. And then the picture on the left is from a visitor who comes all the time, but was excited not only about the exhibition, but the books that were paired there. So that was super cool. And then also on the other side of the wall, we have this conversation wall. And so the idea was to get feedback from visitors on their experience with the gallery, but also just prompt them with questions. So there were 4 different questions for these cards. One of them was, which was your favorite work and why? If you could ask Macaulay a question, what would it be? And so on and so forth. And it has gained over 300 responses so far. And we're recording them all, and they are all beautiful. But I'll only share this one, which will be the last thing I share with you. But one of our visitors wrote this quote, which I'll read to you. It says, "How do you imagine a world where Black queer visibility and power is at the center of it? What would that world look like? How do we achieve it? What can we do today to get closer to that future? And how do we bring white allies into recognizing the importance of centering Black experiences into our own work?" So I'll stop sharing. Thank you again for having me.
Thank you so much, Brittany. I might just go jump on a plane as soon as the requirements here in Massachusetts release in a couple of weeks. So thank you so much. So Kate Potter is up next. She is a ranger at the Longfellow House, Washington's headquarters, and is here to tell us a little bit about what happened in 2020 to the Queerest House in Cambridge.
Hi folks, welcome. Like Ali said, my name is Kate Potter, pronouns she, her, hers. And 2020 was an interesting year. I think we can all agree on that. Our challenge at the Longfellow House was to bring what had been a pretty much entirely in-person program entirely virtual. So in the before times, these are just two screenshots that I grabbed from our Facebook advertising various programs that we had. And the walking tours were about various subjects, George Washington, fugitive slave law in Cambridge. And we also had porch chats about things like Harry Dana, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow's gay grandson, ghost stories, ghost tales of the 19th century, the queer stories of the Longfellow House. So our approach in 2019 and 2018, a little bit, I believe as well, was really to just present the queer history of the house as another aspect. We'll talk about George Washington. We'll talk about Henry Longfellow. We'll talk about queer history. We'll talk about weird Victorian science to get us started. So this is just another of the many magnificent aspects of our site that we are really excited to share with the public. In the 2019 Pride Parade, the National Park Service had a contingent walking the parade, which was really cool. So how do we bring that virtual? We did a lot of written posts, we did a bunch of videos, and we also did a handful of live events. Where did we do all of these things? Mostly on Facebook. Some of those Facebook posts were mirrored to Instagram as well. Actually, most of them were mirrored to Instagram. We published some articles on nps.gov, and we also did some live events on Zoom. The written posts can really be broken down into the formal ones that were published on nps.gov, and you can see the titles there. The informal posts were about Facebook. And again, mixed in with tons of other topics. The post on National Coming Out Day still makes me cry a little bit every time I read it. My colleague Ranger Nicole is a fantastic writer. We talked about Annie Adams Fields and Sarah Orne Jewett as well, because both of them were very good friends with Henry Longfellow. Annie Fields' husband was Longfellow's publisher. Then we wrote something about Alice and her partner Fanny Stone as well. The videos, picking up Ken's theme of collaboration, we worked pretty closely with our friends at the National Parks of Boston, Ranger Megan from National Parks of Boston and Ranger Megan from Longfellow worked together to make this beautiful 20-minute documentary about Charles Sumner, who was Henry Wadsworth Longfellow's bestie, senator from Massachusetts. From the Vault was an entirely in-house within the Longfellow site. Excuse me, Ranger staff. We all got our Ken Burns on a little bit. They were topic, the videos were about 10-ish minutes on, in some cases, Harry Dana, Sapphic Victorians and the queerness of Alice Longfellow, but also things like women's education and sort of different aspects of the Revolutionary War. Rangers After Dark, that series was the least formal videos that we did. They were about 15 minutes-ish, sometimes live Facebook events, sometimes pre-recorded videos. And that was just a ranger rambling enthusiastically about a topic. Weird maritime disasters, the top 5 ways Charlie Longfellow almost died, the complicated love life of Samuel Longfellow, who was Henry's gay little brother. Live events, again, kind of broken down into what I call insider baseball. So at the NEMA conference last fall, Ranger Nicole spoke. Interpricon was a Park Service-wide internal conference focusing entirely on interpretation. And because of COVID, it's all virtual. We got people from all over the country, a very wide range of parks. I spoke there about how to start doing queer history at your site, sort of how to find it, what to say about it once you find it. And again, picking up Ken's theme, we also worked very closely with the History Project. Ranger Megan and Ranger Megan spoke about #FindYourPride, talking about some of the sites within the National Parks of Boston associated with queer history. Ranger Nicole spoke with Hilary Iris Lowe, a visiting scholar who had written about art queer history and from whose project I stole the title of my talk today. In September of last year, Ranger Megan and I, excuse me, did a joint presentation called Someone Will Remember Us, about how to decode and how to find the symbolism in 19th century queer literature. On the whole, people responded really, really well, which was fantastic. These are comments that were sent to me from someone at the National Parks of Boston. Thank you, Jocelyn. Comment on an Instagram post promoting part of the Charles Sumner documentary, and then a Facebook comment as well about that Charles Sumner documentary, excuse me. We did get one kind of weird comment, which you can see here, that this was a post that had gone up in October, which was LGBTQ History Month. This person saying it's kind of a stretch sometimes, and there was a lot of internal conversation amongst the Rangers to figure out who should respond to this and what should that response be. So you can see down there at the bottom, I responded and basically said, yep, you're right. We're doing a lot of queer history. It's October. Also, this is not 21st century eyes looking at this, that not only did queer people exist in the 19th century, people commented on queer relationships in the 19th century. They may not have had that exact language for it, but people can see the connections between other people. That's always been a thing. But that was really the only negative comment, that negative or somewhat negative comment that we got, which was amazing. In some of the live events, people said really lovely things about how much they appreciated what we were doing, just really warm and fuzzy. So what we learned from last summer was basically that partnerships are great. Working with other national park sites like the National Parks of Boston, and working with external non-government partners like the History Project. There's a lot of cross-pollination of audiences that can happen when you work with other organizations. The History Project folks hear about us. We hear about other History Project events and lectures. So it just kind of strengthens everybody when you work with other organizations. And what's coming next? We already have a post up on Facebook for #HonorLGBT Elders Day. Ranger Nicole is writing a bit for the Monday Mashup, which is an internal National Park Service communication. We're going to continue doing stuff with the History Project. Actually, tomorrow, the Pride team is meeting within the National Parks. So it's Longfellow, National Parks of Boston. There's someone from Minuteman out in Lincoln, Concord at that area. We've got folks, at least one person from Salem and Saugus. So this is really, we're spreading out across Massachusetts and hoping to get as many people as possible involved with this to keep making sure that the National Park Service really is doing what we say we want to do, which is tell all American stories. Here's my email. There will be questions at the end, but also feel free to shoot me an email at any time, and also hit us up on Facebook Messenger. We read that too.
Awesome, Kate. Thank you so much. And I have to say, I utilized a lot of the national park resources that were posted with my fellowship at the Harriet Beecher Stowe Center, which you guys will hear about at the June 2nd event if you tune in. So next we have Ellen Keeter, Chief Curator at the Eric Carle Museum, and Condra Boudreau, the 2019 Trinket Clark intern at the Eric Carle Museum. Their presentation will focus on the Carle's 2019 exhibition, A Look into LGBTQ Representation in Picture Books.
Thank you so much. Hi, I'm Ellen Keiter, Chief Curator at the Carle, and I'm excited to introduce Condra Boudreau. Condra was our 2018 Trinket Clark intern, which is a competitive internship in curatorial and education practices, and it's offered annually to a college or graduate student pursuing a career in illustration, museum work, or library science. And Condra actually checks 2 of those boxes. She holds a master's degree in museum studies from the Cooperstown Graduate Program and an MLS from Simmons University. She just completed her degree today and agreed to do this talk, so I'm all props to her. She currently works as the adult programs manager at Exeter Public Library in New Hampshire. So each Trinket Clark intern is tasked with organizing an exhibition in the museum's reading library on a topic of interest in the picture book field. And Condra proposed a show on LGBTQ representation in picture books. And this is a subject she first explored in a class at Cooperstown. And she did a fabulous job. She put together a really thoughtful and engaging show. And I'm really excited to have her share her experience.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, as Ellen said, I curated a look into LGBTQ representation in picture books. Basically, my goal was to take 25 works and share a variety of stories through representations of some of the works from those stories. I really wanted to focus on modern stories as well. So 17 of the 25 books that ended up getting selected were from the last 5 years. So at that time, 2013 to 2018, and only one book featured was from the 20th century. So I broke it down into 5 different categories, which are those kind of various rainbow colored labels. They were all loving, all people, all overcoming, all valid, and all families, just to show the variety of representation in picture books at the time. The other big challenge I had was finding people or human representations of LGBTQ individuals in books, as a lot of children's books tend to take the animal route. Worm Loves Worm on the far right there being one of those examples. And it was a really fantastic opportunity. I got to meet and work with a really wide range of creators, the authors and the illustrators behind these works, and working with them to pick which image to represent, which book of theirs in some cases, because some had written more than one, which was really exciting to work with, and also allow for opportunities for the visitors that were coming into the reading library to look at the images themselves, read the stories themselves. So all of the books were available to read and engage with in the reading library, as well as for people to take home from the bookshop. And we actually, not long after I had left, someone did end up buying all 25 titles. They saw the exhibit, walked into the shop and was like, I want all 25, please. And that was a great email to get in the middle of my semester, being like, oh, something I did mattered to someone. And that was a really nice feeling. So not only were the titles featured for people to engage with on their own, but we also incorporated them into our story times over the summer, as well as David, one of the primary storytime readers, continued that on while the exhibit was going. And using the whole book approach that the Carl is very, it is a core value of the reading library at the Carl. And that just really gets kids, especially, to engage with the titles on hand and consider what every part of the book is telling about the story. And it just allowed for different ways of engagement. And in line with that, the labels all for each section also had some sort of thought-provoking conversation starter. So for example, we're in the all valid section right now. And the question that that ended that label was, who comforts you when you are not sure? And that was working with the education department to determine, okay, what kind of question can get a child thinking, this is something that everyone experiences and it's not just one type of person, and just getting these types of experiences that maybe they're less familiar with, but then also seeing those families come in and being like, hey, that's my family on the wall. And that was a really great feeling. Like the second day it was up, seeing a family come through, I was working in the library and seeing them, that's me on the wall. And that just reaffirmed, I was like, okay, I absolutely did the right project, because it was definitely, I put a lot of pressure on myself, we'll say that. But it was just a really great opportunity to continue working with some creators that the Carl had worked with in the past and bring them in a new light to the museum, as well as just continuing the opportunities to talk about it in the future. So last summer during Pride Month, the bookshop in their normal display took my book list, added some new titles to it, and the conversation still continues of, okay, we have these old lists, let's keep building with all these wonderful new titles that keep coming out every year. Definitely my representation on the walls was not complete. At the time, there were not really any good picture book representations of non-binary individuals, nor of any trans male individuals, which was really frustrating. And I openly talked about that in the first label. So being upfront and being like, this isn't everyone. They're still working on that. And the October after this exhibit went up, one of the first major published trans male books was coming out. So it was just kind of timing there that didn't work quite so well, but it was really exciting to see people see themselves and engage with people and see them excited about the art on the walls. So I will stop sharing my screen.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. I'm going to run out of my book budget if I buy all 25 of those books and all 45 books from the Cummer Museum. So my Amazon wish list is certainly growing after today. Last but certainly not least, we have Kristen Scorzone, who is coming to us from the Queer Newark Oral History Project, a community-driven initiative to collect the life stories of LGBTQ folks in and of Newark, New Jersey. Kristen will also address the importance of intersectionality and telling all of our stories. Welcome, Kristen.
Hi, everybody. Let me just get my screen share going. Yeah, is that good? Yeah, all right. But yeah, hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. You all are really awesome. I'm really enjoying hearing everyone's presentations. They, she pronouns. So I have worked with the Queer Newark Oral History Project, which is based at Rutgers Newark since 2015 when I was a master's student and now as a PhD student in American Studies there. The project was founded in 2011 by writer activist Darnell Moore, historian Dr. Beryl Satter, and Department Administrator for History and African American and African Studies at Rutgers Newark, Christina Strasburger. So as a community-driven initiative, the Queer Newark Oral History Project collects and preserves the stories of the LGBTQ community in Newark. It was born out of a series of meetings with the LGBTQ community over the summer of 2011. And out of those meetings, just sort of like a regular powwow that they all had together, came the idea for an oral history project because the community wanted their history to be documented and made accessible to everyone, but especially queer youth. So currently we have about 70 oral histories available on our website, along with searchable transcripts. But we also have many more interviews in the pipeline, but we actually have like a really rigorous consent process before posting interviews on our website. So sometimes the interviews are held up a bit by that, but we feel it's important for privacy reasons and safety of the community. So we also have a digital archive of historical documents and materials, as well as other resources, and a very small physical archive of some neat things, ephemera and whatnot, that the community has donated over the past couple of years. We also welcome community volunteers as well as like students to work with us, and we will train them to do oral histories for us as well. And then these are just pictures of those early meetings. So this is our interview page. And so I just want to say that Newark, New Jersey is home to a uniquely Black working class LGBTQ movement. So therefore, like studying Newark's queer history is an opportunity to explore diverse queer histories not accounted for in many historical narratives. You cannot accurately document and analyze this history without taking into account intersectionality, or the ways in which different facets of identity, such as race, class, gender, and sexuality are interconnected and lead to interlocking forms of oppression. So another thing I want to point out is that histories that are about Newark tend to focus on the 1967 Newark Rebellion, or some people will refer to it as the Newark Riots, or the Newark Uprising. And that is, of course, like an important part of our local history, but the city also has this fascinating multiracial queer history. And so our oral histories reflect a multitude of folks that make up the community, such as like activists, spiritual leaders, political figures, transgender pioneers, educators, artists, entrepreneurs, and so on. Our events are always in collaboration with the community. So in past years, we had a conference called Our Voices, Our Histories, featuring 3 generations of LGBTQ Newarkers, where we had like historians and scholars take a back seat and just let those community members have the full focus. And those academics were just sort of like there as moderators and also, to support in the audience. We also had a conference on queer club spaces in Newark, which was another collaboration with local queer community members. And they were able to talk about the city's club scene and bar scene. So we have Queer Newark walking tours that we do in person. And then, of course, with COVID, we created one that's like virtual. I tend to lead a lot of the walking tours, and personally, one of the best things that I think that happens is that often community members will just like join the tours and share their own stories as we walk around the city together. And so it becomes like very like spontaneously collaborative in that way. I also created a podcast for Queer Newark in the hopes that it would be another way for folks to hear these stories and learn both the historical, but also the like contemporary ongoing contributions of queer people in Newark, because like their stories don't stop or end when the recorder is shut off, So we also have a traveling exhibit that was curated by graduate students in collaboration with an advisory board that was made up of diverse members of Newark's LGBTQ community. We got to hear what those folks wanted in an exhibit, what stories and issues are important for them. And so in this way, we made ourselves accountable to the community and can accurately explore the ways in which queer experience is not monolithic, right? So it's important to us to be in the community, and many of us who work on the project are also a part of the LGBTQ community, myself included. So every year we march in Newark Pride, and we participate or sponsor like Pride related events. Like maybe we'll tie like one of our walking tours to Pride. And so one of our directors of the Queer Newark project is also on the board of the Newark LGBTQ Community Center. So we participate in fundraisers for them throughout the year. And of course, we always also show up when our community is in pain, such as after the Pulse nightclub shooting, and for local issues where someone in the community has been victimized, let's say, or the community is trying to like rally support or government action, like local government action on an issue. During COVID-19, like so many other projects, we had to pivot. So we held some virtual events, did participate in virtual fundraisers especially for like the center, and conducted remote interviews. And, lastly, I would just say that race and gender and class all impact the ways in which queer people move through the world. So to listen and be attentive to those differences has allowed us at the project to better present the multiplicity of queer experience in our city. When you're an oral historian, as I'm sure some of you know, you need to be like an embodied listener and be willing to like take somebody's hand that you're interviewing and like go on that journey with them, in order to be able to like build trust and ask the right questions so that you can bring their uniqueness and their stories to the surface. But we as a project also, I think, adhere to this ethos beyond sitting across the table from someone during an interview, but also like through the entire Queer Newark project, which includes like our individual research projects as scholars that we do using these stories, but also, in our various public history projects. And if anyone is interested, we have a lot of social media presence and we have a website. So please follow us and say hi. And thank you so much for having me.
Fabulous. Thank you all so much for taking time out of your afternoon. I am so excited to hear so much about what is going on throughout the, I guess, the whole Eastern Seaboard, about all these fantastic activities that have been going on. So thank you for making our community be included and seen and represented in all of your work, both externally to visitors and internally to staff as well. Tobin, in our moderating our questions, what hot topics do we have to present to our panelists?
All right, so there was a question for Brittany. Who do you get to do your training?
The one that we had for the specific training was Angel Russell. She is a certified sexuality educator, and she is based in Jacksonville, Florida, but has been doing things nationally. I'll drop the link in the chat. But yeah, it's Angel Russell.
It helps when you unmute yourself. The next question was for Kate. Did you partner with the History Project on one or some of your programs?
To an extent. I mean, we offered programs with them, but it was mostly a, hey, Joan, this is what we want to talk about. And Joan is fantastic and said, sure, here you go. How's Thursday the 12th work for you? But hopefully we'll be able to work more collaboratively and really use their knowledge and their resources instead of them just sort of hosting us.
All right, Kate, you're the popular one today. Sorry for the bell. I'm teaching America's youth today. The next question was, Kate, who did you say wrote the National Coming Out Day?
The National Coming Out Day post was Ranger Nicole, they are in the comments, they're here. So send them love and adoration for their words.
All right, so the last question was, has the Stonewall National Parks site been revitalized?
You know, I'm actually not sure. I would assume so. I think many national park sites have been figuring out simply just what to do during COVID. And yeah, I really don't know what they're up to. I'm gonna see if there's any sort of 6 degrees of separation that we can get going on to start talking to them and pulling them into Pride events. But I assume they're gonna start doing more again, but I really don't know, unfortunately.
Since that is, Tobin, was that all the questions that were in the chat?
Yes, and I actually have to jet. I have kiddos.
Ken just threw out a hot topic. Does anyone know if there's funding specifically for queer-related art, history, etc. projects? I'm going to just take this for a hot second because I am the grants manager at Tower Hill, and I have found it difficult to find specific queer that are that specifically pigeonholed, if you will. I think there should be. There are a lot of, for example, scholarships out there to elevate queer youth in order to make sure that they're having the funds and resources to get into school. And so I feel like that can be sort of a next level. But doing a lot of research, there are a lot out there for BIPOC folks. I've seen some out there, but it seems like we haven't necessarily gotten to the next level. Brittany just shared a great link, which is exciting. Does anybody else, whether on the panel or in the audience, have any ideas about this?
May I, Allie? Yeah, I think that this is really an interesting topic. And Meg, I don't see you, but I don't know if you're still on the call or not, but for our advocacy effort, at NEMA, and I'm curious how we organize something like this. But yeah, I was thinking about direct funding streams specifically. Y'all are doing such terrific projects, and how can we guarantee that this work is going to have sort of consistency, longevity of funding and that type of thing? And why isn't there some dedicated funding stream through IMLS, NEA, NEH, whatever the case might be? So it might be something to add to our advocacy agenda, and wonder whether the AAM, LGBTQ Alliance is maybe doing some work on this. But anyway, it's something that we should gather around at some point to start thinking about how we would add that to our mix. Any ideas are welcome.
I will say just generally, I really appreciate that, Dan, and this is why it is fantastic that you're on this call and that NEMA is hosting this, because these topics are something that we really can advocate and make a lot of change. I know that over the past year, there have been a lot more grants that are asking for specific diversity statements. I'm just in the past year of applying for grants, I have seen that, but I think that we're going to have to see a lot of those grants materialize to see if the funding is actually going to the people who are doing the strongest work in the LGBTQ representation and inclusion arena, or whether it's racial equity or gender equity or anything. I think that still remains to be seen, how foundations are actually measuring our institutions and really pushing for this kind of change. Because I think sometimes when you look at the IMLS list, sometimes those were things that they're asking for, but it does not always seen in the funded projects. So absolutely, it's an important question to ask. I see a lot of ideas here and sort of looking for archives and community foundations. Community foundations and localized organizations do great work as well.
So if there's nothing else on that thread, because this is a networking event, and we do have a few minutes left, I would like to invite the audience to unmute and turn your cameras on if you would like to. And if you have any questions or comments for our panelists or for Allie and I, please feel free to ask. We are super excited to answer your questions and chat with you. So feel free.
I'll also stop recording now.